We talk, as we always do, about certain links to players that have come up off the field. There does seem to have been a few names come up from sort of clubs abroad. So the two that we're seeing a lot of this week, David, are Angelo Stiller, so the midfielder at Stuttgart in the Bundesliga, and the other one is Jesus Rodriguez at Betis. There's been quite a few links, especially from the Spanish side, to him. Heard anything on these two at all?
No, with Jesus Rodriguez as well, I've not heard anything, but he's 19 years old, and I think he scored one La Liga goal this season. That for me is not a market Liverpool will be anywhere near. That is clearly agent talk. I mean, if Liverpool do sign a forward, it'll be someone who's got way more production behind them than that. You know, there's just no need for Liverpool to be signing someone of that level. So, I mean, they've got Federico Chiesa, full Italy international with hundreds of goals behind him or whatever. In a great track record, sat on the bench all season. They're not going to sign a kid like that. So I'd say absolutely no chance. And still is an interesting one, a little bit more in their kind of, you know, that kind of player in terms of age profile, good level behind him, you know, quite a few games that they will have watched. My only question, and I don't watch Stuttgart anywhere near enough, is that if he's a pure defensive midfielder and that's his only role, I shy away from the idea of Liverpool maybe signing a player like that, because I think they may be kind of more likely to sign a bit of an all-rounder in central midfield this summer. You know, somebody who can do bits in the more advanced roles as well, because I just think Gravenberch is quite clearly the nailed-on defensive midfielder, isn't he? And unless Stiller wants to come and sit on the bench like Endo has, you know, or he can do bits in that maybe more advanced role. Like I say, I don't know the player well enough at all. But if he is a pure defensive midfielder, again, you know, is that exactly what Liverpool are looking for at the moment? I will be a little bit surprised.
I suppose the one bit I did want to ask you about Stiller, because we've talked about Liverpool maybe looking for a hybrid, an all-rounder, and someone that can come in and maybe accept they're not going to be starters straight away because of Grav, Max, Bosley, Curtis Jones, maybe part of that rotational policy as well. Do you think, I mean, the suggestions that Stiller's got a rumoured release clause around the 30 million mark, do you think something like that price point could bring him into interest? Because I know people like a Baleba type, and I get that completely, but that's going to cost major money, isn't it?
Yeah, but the thing is about, it's not necessarily the money with Baleba, it's how you sell to him the possibility of coming. And okay, if you can say, oh, you easily sell it to him because he comes in as a starter. But if that happens, then are you sitting Alexis McAllister down, are you sitting Szoboszlai down, Gravenberch, and telling them they no longer start 40 games in a season? You know, that conversation then has to happen. And that, you know, that is a big consideration. I think people kind of ignore. And the thing is with Stiller, you know, it might be a lower price point, but, you know, again, to him, when he makes his next move from Stuttgart, does he want to go, yes, to a bigger club? So someone like Liverpool, but does he want to play 40 to 50 games in a season? And is that going to happen at Liverpool? You know, again, like I say, I'm absolutely no scout. So it's not a comment on his quality as a player. Although I know he's very, very highly rated. And obviously that price is excellent, really, if you're looking for bargains. But it's what can you sell it to him as a possibility to come here? Is he just going to end up in the Endo role of sitting on the bench all season? I'm not quite sure. That's an interesting discussion to have. So, yeah, that's what makes me think it's an all-rounder who you know, if they do sign in central midfield this summer, because then you can get minutes in any of the three midfield roles that Liverpool have, and that's an easier rotation to make. You know, rather than someone who's just a pure defensive midfielder who will just sit behind Gravenberch on the bench, because that's very, very difficult to sell to someone.
Yeah, there is still a few question marks about that midfield position for various reasons. And the two more domestic links, actually different ends of the field. So this one came up last summer, and there's quite a few still suggesting that, first of all, Mark Guehi, the Crystal Palace centre-half, England international as well, a year left on his deal. Think Liverpool will be interested in this player at all?
I'm not sure he's massively aerially dominant enough for Liverpool. And again, the role that Liverpool will be buying for in the summer is going to be the role of Joe Gomez, which again, you know, I know you want a Joe Gomez who is more robust and gets fewer injuries, absolutely. But are you able to sign someone of Mark Guehi's profile to come in and sit on your bench and do that? Because Canate seemingly can stay fit under this manager. So that's a big problem for you. You know, you want to give Jarell Quansah some minutes as well. So I just really struggle to see it. I think if Guehi moves, and he's been clearly looking for a move for the last couple of windows now, and that big move, that he'll want to go somewhere where he plays football. It doesn't make sense to come and sit on Liverpool's bench, and I don't think Liverpool will want to give him the wages he'll want to come and sit on their bench either. I really kind of struggle to see that, if I'm being honest. So I've never been big into these links. I know they've been knocking around for a while, but I really would be surprised, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's one of those, and he is a good player. There's no doubt about that. The only reason I'd feel that, almost in a bad way, he will be coming to Liverpool is if there were now question marks over Van Dijk renewing and Konate possibly moving on, which you wouldn't want to see anyway. So yeah, that maybe the two go hand in hand. And then bizarrely, the other end of the pitch completely, a player that's had recent licks and they're coming round again, João Pedro. Brazilian player, Brighton forward, can also almost play like as a 9.5, as people describe him, the 10 and the centre forward. Heard anything around these ones at all?
No, João Pedro, I don't mind as a link, as in it kind of makes sense to me, and I've no doubt he's a player they're watching. I can say that on him. But again, is the production quite there at the level Liverpool would be maybe looking for this summer? He doesn't look like a guaranteed hit. I know. The goals and assists is not right up there, is it? I'm just not massively bought into that. But if that's the profile they want, and they maybe don't think Cunha is right because of the issues he's got at the moment, João Pedro certainly fits that bill. So it's not one I would like to rule out, I would say, on him. But equally, is he quite that top level yet? Albeit he is very young as well, so maybe he's on the cusp, and they can see that he's on the cusp of having a real breakout. But then obviously the big issue then is you've got to negotiate with Brighton, and he's got a little bit of his contract left. So that's a tricky one. But of course, like I say, that's not one I'd like to rule out, because I think it'd be risky and maybe silly to do that, because he ticks a lot of the boxes, and I know Liverpool have watched him.
Yeah, absolutely will be one to keep an eye on. And people maybe drew a few conclusions from this, and maybe it's wishful thinking. I know he's not in this clip, but you probably picked it up. Trent was on media duties as well, which hasn't really done much for natural reasons this season. Did seem to be smiling a lot at the game. Is this more just 2 and 2 getting 27? There's nothing in a contract. It's just Trent smiling because we're doing well, and he's doing media duties for once.
Yeah, I'm not sure he did do media duties either outside of LFC TV. I haven't personally seen anything other than that. I don't know, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it might only have been LFC TV did, which is a pretty gentle underarm one. They're never going to ask him about his contract situation, are they? So I wouldn't read too much into that, unfortunately. I just think that's a case of they needed someone to do LFC TV, and he's a prime candidate for that, given he probably can't do any other media at the moment, because the obvious question on his future would come up.
Yeah, and maybe while there's 2 huge games on the horizon, it's a quiet one just to tick that one off, shall we say. So that's fair enough. And then the final part of sort of, and it links a little bit to what we've been discussing with sort of transfers, incomings and outgoings. I know you clocked it at the press conference. It was a question asked, a really good one by Mo Stewart from the Anfield Wrap, and it referenced squad rotation, how Liverpool, I think it's only Nottingham Forest still come up in our press conferences about minimal rotation this season. Arne Slot specifically, though, talked about how he likes to use ideally 14 to 15 players rather than 20 to 25, which we kind of have got at the moment. Did you look at or listen to those comments and think, is this a message to the wider powers that be, FSG, or is this something players should be taking heed of?
I think it's interesting. I got a little bit of pushback on this, and maybe a lot of people will disagree. But I just get the impression he wants to keep a smaller squad. I don't see how anyone can kind of look at Federico Chiesa picking up less than fewer than 400 minutes this season and think that he's absolutely desperate to have a 6th choice forward going into next season, because the fact is the only competition Liverpool haven't gone really deep in, and they've got a couple of rounds in there, is the FA Cup. So, okay, so then the only season presumably you would need a Federico Chiesa is if you go deep in the League Cup, deep in the FA Cup, obviously compete for the Premier League and deep in the Champions League as well. So those are the conditions. And, it's not very often you really see a quadruple push, is it? Maybe that's going to become more of a feature. Maybe you do need that Chiesa there, but I don't know how you sell to Chiesa. Come back for next season, and we're going to give you another 400 minutes, or Chiesa moves on and you buy someone else and say, come on, we're going to give you 400 minutes next season. Yeah. That's just not. It's not a lot, is it? That's difficult to sell, and then even Harvey Elliott, 500 odd minutes, I think this season, he's really struggled. Same with Wataru Endo. How do you sell that to a player who comes in to replace him maybe, or how do you even say to Endo, we want to keep you around for next season? It's a very, very difficult sell and difficult to keep your squad happy. So I just wonder whether we will see a kind of a shrinking of the squad this summer, and maybe, like I say, it kind of chimes actually with what I was saying about multifunctional players coming in. Can you get one more midfielder who can play all those roles, who can kind of bolster things, but will get genuine minutes, rather than say using Endo for 300 and Harvey Elliott for 400 or whatever? Can you give 700 or 1,000 minutes to someone who can play in every single position? Is that a little bit more palatable? Is that how Slot wants to manage things? To me, his comments on wanting to use 14-15 kind of chime with that. I really think there's potential for quite a few outgoings, but fewer incomings, but high quality, and ones that will, play multiple roles. Maybe that's an interesting one. It also, you think of the links to Jarell Hatto, who can play centre half, can play left back. It just makes you think about that sort of thing. I'm not, like I say, it's very, very early, and we're a little while away from the summer yet. So I'm just theorising here rather than talking about what I think the reality is. But I think you look at his comments and what we know and how he's used his squad and how happy / unhappy some of the players that within the squad currently will be. It just all points to him maybe keeping a smaller squad. And to be fair, if you can keep your players fit in the way that he has this season, that is feasible and you can get away with it. You just hope Liverpool don't get bitten by that further down the line by having an unlucky season in terms of injuries. But we haven't seen the full kind of, the full slot yet, have we? We haven't seen what his ideal squad would look like. We haven't seen what his ideal season would look like. He's kind of doing it on the fly at the moment, which makes it even more impressive. But I'm very interested. I thought those quotes were very insightful, really.
Yeah, it does feel like you said that rather than a big squad, the players that could come in, he sent a lot of the youngsters out on loan, or they've almost been dismissed, haven't they? Like Clark went, Bajcetic. It very much feels like I want senior stars that can come in and do the job straight away, which looks good on paper, no doubts about it at all. Is the risk for you, and we'll have to see how this translates, it's great to have that, and this isn't to be derogatory about them in any way, but all of a sudden with a few knocks, you could have Trey Ione on the bench, James McConnell being really relied on. Is that the risk possibly down the line?
Well, this is it. I mean, as much as luck, he said, we don't think we're lucky with the injuries this season in terms of we try and work in a certain way, and if we can avoid injuries on that basis, then that's happy days, really. I mean, his track record at Feyenoord shows it isn't luck. Equally, it's worth mentioning, did Arsenal just have pure luck for 2 seasons on the bounce when they got their first team out regularly, and now they've just had normal luck? Or it's a balance between the two, isn't it? I think Arsenal have not moved away from what they did, which was things that I said repeatedly on this podcast over the last couple of seasons. They should be credited for being able to get their players on the pitch. That's not luck. It's something they're doing in the way that they work, because it was 2 consecutive seasons that they did it. So, and now obviously they have had a bit of bad luck this season. So that can come for sides who are doing things the right way, clearly. Yeah. Liverpool could have that bad luck next season, so you've got to be guarded against that. But I wonder, it is a little bit of a concern, but equally, I think the manager buys himself so much time to kind of work things out and have maybe a slightly lesser second season, because he's going to win the league this year, which is mental, and nobody expected it. So, maybe there are things he has to work out as he goes, and maybe next season we get more injuries, and that is a lesson he has to learn. But he'll have bought himself time to do that. And I think the key for me, what's interesting actually, I think the best case study on this, I think, is central midfield. Because as I say, okay, if you go into next season, maybe Endo and Harvey Elliott leaves, if he were to leave, I'd love it to just be on loan. I want to keep him around. But say that were to happen, Elliott and Endo were to leave, and he bought one player to replace them. Now he swallows up all their minutes, so he's happy enough. That's enough game time for him, and he's a bit of an all-rounder. And then your next cab off the rank then is Trey Ione. So you've got 5 midfielders who are basically taking the huge chunk of minutes, and Trey Ione there as a backup, and he will be 1 year older, a little bit more developed, bit more ready to kind of take on. Is that, in Arne Slot's mind, the ideal situation? And I think on the evidence we've seen thus far, I would say yes. And similarly in attack, do you have one fewer, but Rio Ungamart is just a little step closer to that first team, and you replace Darwin Núñez with someone who takes up a load more minutes than Darwin Núñez even has this season, maybe Núñez and Chiesa's minutes. And then you have Rio as the kind of next cab off the rank in attack there. That, like I say, just hypothesizing at this point because nothing really concrete has been decided in terms of what Liverpool's summer is going to look like. But for me, that seems to be what they're kind of warming themselves up for. And I'm not, going to say whether that will work or whether that, maybe that could be the perfect setup because you've got 2 real talented youngsters there, very, very close, but also not too close that you're worried about it. And maybe that'd be the perfect plan. But I think it's fascinating because it's totally different to what we're used to. It's a big change, but we will see how that kind of pans out. Because as I say, it's very early days, but just on the basis of what we're hearing, what we're seeing, that seems to me maybe the way that Liverpool will go this summer.
Yeah, could be some big beneficiaries in the youth team or the youth talents there. And to be fair, as we said there, Red Armchair Support mentioned we won the league, so the ends justify the means. And if that's what how Arne Slot wants to work, how are we to say anything about it? We'll have to wait till the summer to see. And speaking of the summer, and right at the end of the summer, I know you will have clocked this one as well. This morning it comes out. Liverpool have confirmed a deal back with Adidas for the kit supplier, but not until the 1st of August, so right near the start of the season. How long, David, before the start sort of chance or the comments of where's the Adidas money start, John? How long we reckoning?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I think all the anti-FSG stuff is kind of being dampened down a little bit by the fact that Liverpool are winning the league at a canter, fortunately. So, maybe we won't hear that one yet. But, for me, this is good news. I think that the talk has been around this as well in some of the reporting of a 60 million a season kind of deal. But my understanding is it could end up being worth quite a bit more than that. So, I think they're going on the conservative side of things. I think it's going to be very, very lucrative for Liverpool. I mean, they're always right up there for shirt sales as well. So I think Liverpool have in recent seasons generally tried to work in a commission-based element, which wasn't typically done in previous years. So if they've done that again, which I think there may be a possibility of that around this deal, which is based on the amount of shirt sales, then there could be serious money on the table for this. And for me, I think it's good also because I've never really seen, even though they've done some great kits, I've never seen Liverpool as a Nike club anyway. I think they are very much an Adidas club in my mind. So it always suits them a little bit better. So looking forward to seeing what these kits look like. But also the most important thing for Liverpool is that it has a big impact on the bottom line, which strengthens your ability to sign players and pay out big contracts to, say, a couple of players who are maybe your most important players who are coming to the end of them.
Yeah, no 2 ways about it. Will be a little boost all round. And as you alluded to, the net spend boys will be quiet tonight. And I know someone will give me a stick for that comment, but I don't really care. So there we go. That's fine. And